Boxing Truth here. Didn't get the chance to talk about the Roman Gonzalez Carlos Cuadras fight and what was a damn good fight. It's a hell of a fight. But I wanted to talk about the fight and also how Roman, from what I saw, clearly defeated Carlos Cuadras, but yet Roman's haters find a way to find excuses to why they feel he lost and was given a gift decision, and some fans feel Cuadras was robbed in the fight. I mean, Cuadras, he showed his worth. He showed why he was a world champion. He also showed some very suspicious conditioning. Maybe the acne on his back is more than just acne. Could be a sign of something else, because it was a weird fight. I don't know if Roman's haters just failed to acknowledge or just refused to accept that Roman was whipping Cuadras' ass for about the first 5 or 6 rounds of that fight. It was a very one-sided fight. A domination. It was all going according to plan. From what I said in my prediction vid about this fight, that Roman was going to give Cuadras a beating. And he did. For the first 5-6 rounds of that fight. I mean, Gonzalez clearly jumped out to a very big early lead in the fight. And then Gonzalez, he started gassing right before the late rounds. Around round 9, you could see Gonzalez was tiring. He was starting to feel the effects of moving up in weight and fighting a much larger man. But he sucked it up, continued to fight, and was continuing to put pressure and landing combinations and was going to war with Carlos Cuadras. Cuadras, I mean, he was getting his ass whooped for a number of rounds, was constantly getting hurt throughout the fight to the head and body. Was running around every time he got hurt. He ran from Chocolatito. And he showed he's a good fighter. I can't take nothing away from him. I mean, I was suspicious about his conditioning, though. I mean, he was getting his ass whooped in a lot of those rounds. And somehow, at the end of the fight, he had more energy from all the shots he took and the combinations and flush shots that he was taking, getting hurt multiple times throughout the fight. And yet he had more energy than the guy who was dishing out the punishment to him. Now, Cuadras came back. He made it interesting in the latter part of the fight. I gave him the 11th round. He appeared to hurt Gonzalez with a body shot in that round. And it was a round Gonzalez was winning until he got hurt by a shot. I believe it was a body shot. And ended up Cuadras ended up stealing that round on my scorecard. But the last 3 rounds were very competitive, very close, because Gonzalez was gassing. He was very fatigued, drew a lot of punches, drew a lot of combinations, was working very hard. He was really stepping on the gas pedal to get a stoppage. And I was very surprised that Cuadras was able to survive the onslaught he was taking, especially in the first half of the fight. He was a lot quicker in this fight than what I seen from him from previous fights. He appeared a lot slower from the footage I saw prior to the other fights that I've seen, but he was fast in this fight. He threw a lot of punches, a lot of combinations, but a lot of the shots he was throwing were arm punches. They weren't very powerful punches. It wasn't until the latter part of the fight that he was starting to put more mustard behind his shots, was even able to get the attention of Gonzalez with one of his punches in the 11th round. But it was a good, tough, competitive fight, especially in the second half of the fight. Cuadras came back. He was showing a lot of energy, was throwing a lot of punches, was throwing a lot of flashy flurries. But Gonzalez landed more punches. He landed the more hurtful punches. He landed the harder punches. and he was constantly the ring general throughout the fight. Was constantly walking Cuadras down, was chasing him. Cuadras was at times running from him. Every time he got hurt by Gonzalez, he was hurt multiple times throughout the fight. I give Cuadras credit for his toughness, able to weather the storm and hang in there, and to come back and win a couple of rounds in the latter part of the fight. But it was a 8-4 type fight. Gonzalez clearly won. He got up to an early lead. The big lead that he had, it was just too much for Cuadras to overcome. And I still felt Gonzalez won the 12th round. He came back very strong in that 12th round. Was tired, was fatigued, but he was willing to bite down his mouthpiece and continue to fight hard and throw punches, and was still able to finish the fight strong. And what was a hell of a fight. It was, according to Gonzalez, his toughest fight of his career, fighting at a new weight and fighting a much bigger man, a undefeated champion. But Gonzalez clearly won the fight. Of course, if you look at the two fighters' faces, if you didn't watch the fight and you look at the two fighters' faces, you'll probably say Gonzalez lost because he was marked up. He got busted up pretty bad in the fight. He had some swollen eyes. But you can't go by the two fighters' faces. You have to watch the fight, and you clearly see that Gonzalez landed much more hurtful punches, hurt Cuadras more in the fight compared to Cuadras hurting Gonzalez. He landed more combinations, landed a lot more punches, and was constantly walking Cuadras down and was landing effective combinations throughout the fight. But Cuadras, he somehow was able to have all this energy despite getting walked down and just taking a beating in a number of rounds. And I was surprised how he was able to have all his energy very late in the fight. But to me, it was a clear-cut victory for Gonzalez. A rematch, it's warranted. I mean, Cuadras was able to come back after pretty much getting dominated for 5 rounds. Was able to make it interesting. And you could agree with all the judges' scorecards. I mean, maybe 9-3 was a little too wide, but 8-4, 7-5, that was right on the money. To me, it was an 8-4 type of fight, simply because Gonzalez was just much superior to Cuadras in the first half part of the fight. But they could definitely do a rematch. I don't know if there was any VADA testing for this fight, but if I'm part of Gonzalez handlers for the second fight, before that they agreed to a rematch, Cuadras is going to have to agree to VADA testing, because, I don't know, his conditioning was a little too suspicious after taking all those shots and taking a beating in a number of rounds and getting hurt multiple times throughout the fight, to somehow have more energy from the guy that was dishing out punishment to him. But he definitely gave Gonzalez a tough fight. It was not an easy fight for Gonzalez, but he was definitely the clear winner. And him and Golovkin continue to show that these two guys are the best pressure fighters in the game, and that Gonzalez not only pressures you, but he does it with skill. Cuadras admitted that Gonzalez's defense was much better than he expected. He was constantly avoiding a lot of Cuadras' shots with his arm, parrying his shots with his arm, and having his head into position to avoid punches and countering. Also turning Cuadras and pivoting and hitting him with the left hooks and the right hand. Gonzalez not only comes forward, but he's very skillful when he does come forward. And that's much more impressive to me when a pressure fighter shows his skill set coming forward, dipping and dodging punches, and coming back with his own firepower. It's a lot more impressive and much harder to be effective at in pressuring your opponent, avoiding his incoming shots, and able to land your own, than being on the back foot and not engaging your opponent. It's much more pleasing to watch. It's much harder to do, and it's much more impressive watching a pressure fighter showing his skill set coming forward. But it was a good fight, tough fight for Gonzalez. Got marked up, but he deserved the victory. He was the clear winner. The right guy won. I don't have a problem with any of the judges' scorecard. He could have scored it. Maybe 9-3 was a little too wide, but 8-4, 7-5 was more accurate. And they could definitely do a rematch. Cuadras just didn't start out very well. He got himself to a very big hole, and it was just too much to overcome. Maybe he could start faster in a rematch, but we'll see what's next for both guys. Gonzalez expressed interest in a fight with Inu down the line. He has no problem fighting Inu. And that's what you gotta like about Gonzalez. He's willing to fight the best, willing to fight him right away. He's willing to challenge himself. He's willing to fight the best out there in every division he competes at. There's still plenty of big fights for Gonzalez. He's continued to be in entertaining fights. His last two fights have been very tough, but he was the rightful and clear winners in both. He should take a rest, maybe for the rest of the year. That was a war he was in. Both guys took some damage. Cuadras surprisingly was full of energy after the fight. It was crazy how he was able to withstand all the punches he took in that fight. But still plenty of big fights for Gonzalez. The Inu fight is out there. A rematch with Cuadras. A rematch with El Gallo is also still out there. And we'll see where HBO takes Gonzalez next, as Gonzalez still has many interesting fights ahead of him. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.